We talked a little bit about the taxi squad. We talked some minor league baseball, major league baseball. Did you check out any minor league baseball over the weekend? I heard if you attended the Storm Chasers game, it was pretty fun.
No, they do it right.
And they had let's say a pretty good fireworks show as well.
Steady Eddies.
So that's not the only time though that Storm Chaser games are fun. You can even find good promotional giveaway nights, or you could just find your favorite team, whether it's a major league team and their minor league systems in town. Go check out the Omaha Storm Chasers if you get a chance. Jordy Ball night was over the weekend as well, which that line was longer than the jersey giveaway night.
Her impact and Q rating is just through the roof. Like, you talk about a Pied Piper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's
The ball effect is real.
It's unbelievable.
It is nuts.
And how many times is it better after it started a different way? Like, I mean, would it be like this if she was here from the beginning? I don't know. I just know that what's happened since she's been at Oklahoma, and softball fans having to get over what happened when she chose Oklahoma, then the coming back, it's like some storybook.
And I don't think anybody is. Are you still trying to get over that?
No.
I don't think anybody is. And maybe it's because she's so good at answering the question and answering the call, and because of the success she had somewhere
and
else.
even before she left, like, she talked about the recruiting and like feeling like it was about things bigger than just the sport there and what drew her there to begin with. And I just think people understood.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about with discipline and just overall care. So when I was chatting with my mom, I wanted to get her thoughts on paper so that I could bring them up here, because the point she made up, which you don't think about as a kid, you don't think about when your parents are quote unquote strict, that it actually in turn leads to them just caring about you and your well-being versus if your parents kind of let you do whatever you wanted growing up. Some may wonder deep down if they actually care and are looking for that in those developmental times. So she's like, this is what she said. She said, I'm not sure what you're exactly looking for, and this just touches the surface, but we talked about there are kids that will tell you they love that they can do what they want and their parents let them do anything and don't have a curfew, etc., things like that. But deep down they wonder if their parents really care.
I wonder if that's I could buy into that. Had a conversation yesterday morning. I was just walking around outside and I was talking to DJ on the phone, and we were talking. Well, there's a lot of things, but we are just basically talking about coaching, and he does a lot of leadership and life coaching, like within families. And I was saying to him, there's such a fine line with some of our crew that we're coaching, where it's kind of the off season, but it's not the off season. Like, we're working now, and it's a slow burn. And sometimes you worry about saying too much too often. Hey, in this workout I want to, or at this workout or evaluating this 7-on-7. But I said the worst thing you could do is when you stop talking to the players, right? You just kind of let them do their own thing. And I was joking with him. I said, I always tell our players, whether it was young guys, I was coaching at youth or whatever, I said, don't worry about when I do talk to you. Worry about when I don't. Right? Like, because as a coach, if or a mentor or whatever, or your parenting, like, that means probably that whatever you're saying to them isn't having any impact, or they're not listening anyway. So you just stop. You just stop saying it, and there's a fine line. Because sometimes you hear parents, and it happens a little bit more with the younger generation, newer. Not that I'm going all Walt Kowalski, like, get off my lawn. But I do think there's this there's this bartering back and forth where I did it too, or I did the same thing, or
Mhm.
that
Well,
used to be
well,
me.
he got to do that, so why can't I?
And we just and I and I just don't think that's the answer, because you always want people to be better. You want them to be better than you were. You don't want them to have to go through kind of some of the things that you went to. And you can humble yourself, or you can be humbled. And if you pick the latter, it can hurt.
Well, you had said just right there, and what's really comparative to what Coach Rule does is when I'm not talking to you, that's when you should
Yeah,
worry.
like,
Like that's when Coach Rule's basically saying, like, hey, the door is there.
yeah,
Like, you don't want to be here. That's fine. That's cool. I'm not going to put my time and effort to try to keep you here when I have 149 other guys
right, not
that
coaching to
want
the
to be here.
10%. He uttered the fame. I don't know if this was in private or public, but he said, he goes, like, I've got a track record, right? I've had a way of doing business. It hasn't all
Hmm.
been great all the time, but it has been this upward ascent, and now I'm here. So apparently, I know a little bit about a little bit. Why would you argue with me? Why would you be combative with me? Do you not think that I don't want the best for you? Do you
Hmm.
not think I don't want to win? Like, what are we arguing about here? I mean, can just imagine a coach having a conversation with a player like that, and how it could just immediately stop you in your tracks. Like, w- why wouldn't you listen? Have you done this before? Do you know what I mean? And
And
it was
that's
just the way that he was saying it, and I was like, and that was the first time that I thought to myself, you know what? This is probably what a lot of good leaders do. This is probably what a lot of good coaches do. We just simply aren't used to it. We don't hear it out loud. It's not typically expressed to us out loud, whether it's through media outlets or sit downs. And I just think we don't know how to consume it. So we fight it, right? Is it roulade? Is this really gonna work? No, just take it for what it is
right now.
right now. This like right now.
Admit to not knowing because it's okay if you're upfront and honest right away
Man, it's
versus if
tough.
you're
It's
combative.
I
If
know,
if you think
I
you can
know.
do it yourself, if you
Yeah.
think you can figure this out on your own, you're probably wrong. Like there's somebody else that's done it before.
Yeah.
Listen to that person first.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. I just would think, and I don't know where it goes wrong with some young people and standards, but like if somebody's doing things and they've been successful, or they've accomplished some things, why wouldn't you listen? Like, what makes it like baloney to begin with? But I just think there's this subconscious bartering and negotiating now, because we're so afraid to lose kids. And I just, to bring it back to running the program, the whole competitive thing in life, and having winners and losers, and competing for your job, and not wanting it to be Disneyland, and coaches to be held accountable, and like, that's really that's
Hmm.
that's life, right? And he's just saying it out loud for his team, which is the same thing. Why I like where your mom was going with this. I think it's the same thing about leadership in households. Like, sometimes in our subconscious, we're like, there's this feeling of wanting to be well liked. You want to make sure that you get along. You don't want them to push you away, because you don't want them
You
making
want to be
bad
the
decisions behind
favorite.
your back. And it's it's no real manual. There's just best practices,
Hmm.
and you just have to hope that those best practices, can hold it down. And I'm telling you, they can be the great equalizer for, sometimes fiscal mobility. I talked about fiscal mobility, or whatever, like, just the other centered boundaries kind. And I'm listen, the guy you're talking to, a guy that's not good with boundaries, right? Like, stretches himself way thin, even though it probably shouldn't. Like, right? But I understand if it's I don't want it to be about me. I want you to be a better version of you. And sometimes I'll be willing to kind of be miserable, for lack of a better word. Like I'll go through it
You'll
for a
put
while
yourself last.
because I know I'll figure it out because I've been at bottom. It's not healthy. I don't recommend it. But what I'm saying is when you're coaching and you're empowering other people, it's so you don't have to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. When Coach Rule tells you it's too transactional, the NFL was too transactional. I don't like why he's a second chance guy as long as you're appreciative and understand what comes with the responsibility. That's not substitute parenting for coaching because that's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how that lends itself to W's, I'm not sure. But in the meantime, while you're trying to build, I don't know if there's a better place to start.
There's a movie out there called The Ugly Truth. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't.
And
I still haven't seen Independence Day. You think I've seen The Ugly Truth?
I don't know. You've seen a lot of movies.
That's bad movies.
But it's kind of like what you're saying here is you got to put your feelings aside and you just got to like look at the ugly truth.
Yeah.
You just got to just look at what it is.
my dad used to tell me, don't ask me any questions you don't want to know the answer to. Like, what? What do you mean? No, I'm serious.
Now you know. Now you know.
I
and
do.
You probably say the same thing to your boys and girls.
Yeah, and it's just like it's the good leadership. It's
and when I said boys, I meant like more your team, your football team, over just your immediate household.
Yeah, it's just like, do you really want to know? Okay. Yeah, and it's so weird how it affects my personality because Shane, you remember this? Like my first stretches when I first started, when I was getting out of education into the sports media talk, and it used to always bug me when hey, how you doing today, or what's up, or you good? And in my head, I always used to think I never really would respond or engage. I just
you in the mood or what?
Yeah, I am. Because not really. I always used to wonder if they really wanted to know. And so sometimes I would say, Shane, you've heard me say, do you really want to know, or are you just saying that to be saying it?
Sometimes I'd be saying it just to be saying it. Hey, can I say one other thing about Independence
Day?
No,
because every morning, right?
Right.
Like it'd be like, hey, he had the same greeting. I said, you really want to know, or are you just saying that to be saying it? Because I was always on guard about authenticity. Go ahead.
Can I say one thing about Independence Day since you brought it back up again?
It
surprises me that you guys hadn't seen it because there's movies that are on the timeline that like started a standard in movies like Star Wars, and then Batman.
Was on a ton this weekend.
Star Wars.
Oh,
Batman, the '89 Batman. I mean that ushered in the superhero movie. But '96 when Independence Day came out, that reinvigorated the disaster movies. So you had Twister after that. You had Titanic. You just had a ton of those movies came after that.
So Independence Day is a disaster?
So Independence Day is like the lion in the food chain.
It's
and everything else falls beneath it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just one of those movies that are just on the timeline like that.
We still have Kurt?
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go to the phone, 888-638-4876 if you want to join the conversation. Kurt, good morning.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, you had me thinking. I love the conversation about expectations of kids and structure and how it parallels to parenting. And I know there's no data point, but I'm guessing some of the best coaches out there are probably pretty darn good parents because they, generally speaking, one speaks to the other. If you're coaching parenting, you got to find a way to relate to kids. I think the hard part is the disciplining, yet not losing trust through that discipline. And I'm a father of two, and I've told my kids, like, if you don't trust me, it doesn't matter how I discipline you because you'll just run away and hide. And in coaching, you've got to find that balance. And I have a ton of respect for the ones that can do it because kids don't get any easier today. So I
say that for me one more time, Kurt. That may make a T-shirt. If you don't trust me, it doesn't matter
How you
high
discipline.
discipline.
Yeah, I mean, and literally that's why I told my kids, if you got a playbook on how to be a parent, I'll gladly read it, but there isn't one. But that's the.
I think that's the
conclusion
beauty
I've
behind
come
it,
to.
though. That's the beauty behind it, because a
Yeah.
lot of it is how you were raised, and if you were raised in a poor light, all right, how am I going to change that with my kids? Or
But
if
I
you were
but I
raised
but I
well
kind of think you
with
nailed
good,
it
strong
though,
parents,
right? Because isn't that
how are
Kurt?
you gonna
Isn't that why you
reciprocate
think
that?
kids don't receive the information very well that you're trying to tell them? Because there's a lack of
Well,
trust.
Yeah, and I didn't come to that realization until I had a conversation with them. Because
Mm.
you know, if your behavior doesn't change, the consequence isn't effective.
Yeah,
So
it's just punitive.
I just sat down and like, guys, like I'm looking for a change in behavior. It's not happening. Why? And they're like, because all you do is, you know, we just get grounded or we lose this and it doesn't work. I'm like, okay, well then what works? And then they didn't really have an answer. And so I came up with the relationship side of it. I'm like, if we don't have a relationship and if you don't trust that what I'm doing is in your best interest, whatever I'm doing doesn't matter. Can we agree on that? And they're like, yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean,
And that was the starting point, right?
Yeah, and I tell them, like, guys, half the time I'm winging this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm
Mhm.
just trying to do my best. And I think that's what everybody does, whether you're coaching, whether you're parenting, and kids can feel it. If they know you truly have their best interest at heart, they'll figure it out. Maybe not right away, but at some point they do.
Fantastic stuff, Kurt.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
I need to call my guy over at Triple B. That may be a t-shirt.
You know, sometimes I think there's a lot of truth to that, but in another sense, I think there's also a lot of truth to when you're listening to your parents, like they know more than you. So you just have to do what they say because they're the ones taking care of you at the end of the day. Like there isn't even if I got grounded as a child, like did I learn from that or you took away my whatever toy? Did I learn from that? It's more just the principle behind no, I'm your parent and this is how we do things here. And if you don't like it, then too bad.
I had a I like the trust discipline thing. I used to fast forward to the very end, and I would always say, I've said this for years, when you lose hope, the consequences don't matter. Right? That's why repetitive behavior and you know, habitual criminal, like you just lost hope. So it's not about really the consequences. So the punishment never really is the thing. I had this fantastic conversation on our way to the airport with Caleb, and it was just the two of us, and I told him, I said, you know what I'm starting to see now over the last month was kind of what I was after a year ago in the off season. And you know, he's you know, going deep, and he's talking about, you know, learning on his own time, and it wouldn't have had as much impact. And I said, and he said, you know, well, what's been the issue? And I said, you know, I was just afraid. Right? Like I was afraid that you were going to run out of time. And I don't even know in time for what.
Because we talk about does time matter?
And he goes, what? And I go, I just thought it was going to be too late. And he said, what was too late? And I didn't have a great answer. Now this is again in like a 20 some odd minute drive. And we basically were talking about his team and growth and stuff. And I go, I don't know, but for whatever the reason, as a parent, I put you up against the clock. And like I had like this moment where I'm like,
is that because you saw other people doing it a different way? Or maybe faster?
Well, it was lots of things, whether it's different or faster or the way that I envision it's a culmination of things, right? Like, man, you have a facility right down the street, do this, or you know, you play all these different sports, just do this, or you act like this, just do this, or you want to be recruited like this, just like there's like this imaginary clock that I put him on, knowing that like you know, whatever the timing is, it'll be. It's not like I can't define it. I couldn't even put it in words, and it's kind of how I feel like coaching. It's like hey, we say these convoluted terms, right? We're like, well, when you're not working, other people are. I mean, they don't really put that into. So you mean, what's the difference if I have a workout at 9 and I don't want to go to it, and I go at 12:30 and my time's cut or whatever, like somebody else out there is probably is working, and typically when you meet those people, they'll beat you head to head, but it's hard to get the connection made between who you're talking to, like if it's your team or whatever, until it actually happens. And then you can't say, see, I told you, because resentment can build and the lack of trust can build. But there's this imaginary clock that coaches have, that parents have. That's why they schedule the way that they do. You think it was coincidence that Coach Rule wanted eight weeks for winter and pushed the spring game back? Well, he said, hey, listen, I know we're going to run up against it. I could get some soft tissue tweaks early, but I wanted a full 8 weeks because my data points show me that after such and such a time, this is when this happens. I'm going to roll with the 8 weeks and we're going to push it back. Okay, sounds good. Everybody has to trust that. You have to know how to do the downtime.
And
right?
that's the best interest thing that Kurt was referring to when he was
Well,
talking.
and it's like I told you, right? And that's why my circle is so small, and I don't share a ton. I know it seems like I do, like on air, but like not in my, like when I go home, I'm gonna go sit in my house and pretend not to be miserable, right? Kind of, but not really. So I'd say, Andrew, you can say anything to me, and I can receive it because I think you have my best interest at heart. So do I love it sometimes?
You say that a lot,
but because I think that I know that that's how I function, right? Like, and at some point you cross this mythical line with your parents where it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, you can say that to me because I know you care about me, but you just don't know
you can
when
be
that's
strict with me because I know you care about me.
Wouldn't it be nice if we got that early? Because for some reason we can't just get there's 2 players in particular that come to mind on this football team that didn't want the discipline early. Just fought it like crazy. He's like, no, we're going to do this a certain way, and it's because I care. And the sentiment was, without saying it out loud, well, if you really cared, you'd let me be. No, because I do care, I won't let you be. Right? And I don't know what the magic coaching point is or the magic parenting point or whatever, but when that thing happens, it's amazing what you can say to somebody and they receive it differently. It's just weird how as you get older, you love and want the discipline and guidance of older people when it should be just the opposite, because you're gaining more freedom as a mature adult.
But I think you want it more when you're older because you know you're going to be that. When you're younger, you don't want the discipline because you want to just do you. But when you're older, you want to be where they are someday. And in order to get there, get there, you have to listen. You have to be a learner, a lifelong learner, as you say. And you have to make sure that you put everybody at the level of best interest. Nebraska, period, sports, period. Gone in 60 seconds. Up next.